Following total atomic annihilation, the rebuilding of this great nation of ours may fall to you. That's why we here at Vault Boys WV will take you on an oral tour of the beautiful state of West Virginia. There's no other place to be better prepared for the impending fallout. Now we go live to our team of experts.
Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Vault Boys WV. If you didn't know, this is a weekly podcast bridging the gap between Fallout 76 and West Virginia through history, culture, and personal experiences. Some of it has references, and the rest is just our local take. From Holler the Highway, we've got you covered 6 ways a Sunday. I'm your resident Appalachian scribe, Dave Chaffins, and joining me is Mr. Tourism himself, Austin O'Connor. How you doing, Austin?
What's going on, man?
I'm doing pretty well.
Doing pretty well.
Nice little rainy week we're having.
Somber week, but
yeah,
good for naps, as I was just letting you know.
It is good for naps.
I got to stop with the naps, man.
Oh, how's that going?
It's very counterproductive. Last night I got home. I had so many things I needed to get done.
Yeah?
8 o'clock rolls around. I'm asleep on the couch. I had to make my way to Walmart. That was, as you know, an experience.
Right.
Here.
Well, if you go down Corridor G, especially with the construction they're doing, that's like a round trip of like 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something to complain about in particularly, especially for, I've got friends that live in D.C. area and, you know, it's an hour to anything.
So this is a fun fact about me. Over the weekend when I went to Charlotte, I tried hummus for the first time.
Oh my goodness.
Everyone was like, what have you been doing for 25 years? So I tried hummus. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was great.
What did you have it with? Was it like a
pita chips, tzatziki sauce, and some sort of cheese? They were like, it was like kind of a spread at this restaurant.
Yeah. Did you go to like a Greek restaurant or was
no?
It
It was a new place in Uptown Charlotte. My buddy that lives there.
Yeah. Was it like Fancy White People Are Us?
It was sort of bougie. Like we were outside. Yeah. It's like just a few weeks old place. It was like a patio though. They had like beer and stuff.
Yeah, it was like.
I mean, I got like sliders, but they were like $13 for 3 of them. So it was like obviously, but I mean, then again, it's North Carolina, so everything.
Right, and in Charlotte, it's so those nicer places are a little bit pricier.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried hummus. My buddy Austin that I was with, he got me started on it. Went to Walmart last night and. Even though I had a list, I always have this like moment of panic at Walmart where I'm like, shit, what am I going to get? Like, I like go off track every time. Like I kind of go, like I call an audible and I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this. Like I'm going to get this stuff. And then I panic and I bought 3 things of hummus.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Just for you?
Just for me. I was like, I like hummus. I'll get hummus. So,
what kind did you get? What's the flavor profile?
Red pepper, I think hummus.
Red pepper is
pretty good. But I got home and I realized what I had done. Mm-hmm. And I'm just standing there at the counter, just staring at these 3 containers of hummus, realizing that I got them and like maybe a couple other things to snack on. But like realistically, like in terms of like wholesome food that's going to actually provide me with meals. Yeah. Very limited on that. Still somehow spent like $80. And then I looked and I was like, oh, I bought 21 things of yogurt. Why? I don't know. I panicked. So last night that nap kind of threw me into a whole nother dimension. So now I'm just
now you're the hummus lord.
Now I'm master. I'm the hummus chancellor. I'm
the czar.
The czar of hummus. Yes. Yeah. So I'm fighting a nap today because God only knows what can happen now after that.
I always have trouble, particularly in the weekends when we have a show. So I play if you don't know, I play in a local band. We're like as generic as you can get rock band. And we try to make it fun and do our thing. And it's, we're like locally probably like right at the tip top of B tier, I would say.
Yeah.
It was like, we headline sometimes, but oftentimes we're, if it's a real show, like, being sponsored and what have you. Yeah. We're on down the list a little ways, but
still counts.
We do shows throughout, mainly just Charleston and Huntington because those scenes kind of mixed together. But this show in particular was very interesting because it was a Christmas in July show in which we repurposed one of our songs with Christmas lyrics and then learned the song Jingle Bell Rock. And I hated myself for a good 2 weeks learning that particular song.
I would say that would get old, having to... Yeah, because Christmas music, I love it for like a week. And then it's just like, God, like get us to January.
So I was like, okay, we're gonna play this, and it's gonna suck, and it's gonna be fine because it's gonna be at the end of our set, and that's at like, 11 o'clock, I would say, and so it'll be fine. People get the point, and we'll get out of there. So we went to the show, and I walk in, and I brought my wife and her brother with me, and they're helping me carry in stuff, and I go to the bar to order some drinks, and there's this dude there in this white guy with a big beard in a Japanese kimono with
Swaggin'.
like Japanese lettering, he had sweatpants on under it.
That's
but
badass.
Like had a Japanese kimono. Turned to look at me and with the most like expressive tone and face said, "These lemons are great. You need to have one of these lemons." I was like, "Oh."
What do you say to that?
I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And he was like, "No, you need to try them." And so I kind of know the bartender, and I was like, "Hey, you get me one of these lemons." And so she was like, "Okay." And she was like, "How do I just serve a lemon?" So she got like a little like little cup that you would put like sauce, like ketchup or something in it.
Just put a lemon in there.
Lemons in there, and I tried one, and it tasted just like a normal lemon.
It was a lemon, right?
And I was like, "Oh, this is
fearing for your life at this point.
Really, really good." Yes. Yeah. And so I have that weird interaction with him, and it's like, okay, well, that's not the strangest thing that's happened to me. So I sit down, and
welcome to Huntington.
I proceed to listen to the first band, which had a holiday name. So I was like, oh, they just must be some guys getting together.
Yeah.
And it was a brass quartet playing Christmas music. So it was, it is what it is. I was annoyed, and then I enjoyed. I will say, you gotta, warm up to these things. Then they had
you embraced it.
Right. They had a singer-songwriter come on and play, and then we ended up playing. And then we left, because a lot of those shows, it's like, we got to drive. It's like an hour out there, and so we're like, we're going to get out of here. And so we had him back, but we missed the final act, which is Glass Diaper. So it turns out this guy that was wearing the kimono has a whole set that he does of music.
Ooh,
and
okay.
his music is, and I watched a video of it where he has a mixer and he has his computer and he just plays music.
How old is he?
Oh, guys, I would say he's like 20 to 30.
Okay.
Like he's probably not a student there. He's probably a little bit older, but he's in that 20 to 30 range, I would imagine.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I didn't talk to him other than the lemons thing. But when we left, he had fashioned himself a sash that was just a shirt that had Jesus is, and it just said Jesus is on there. And I think it had something on the normal shirt that would be underneath it, but the way he had it in a sash, it just said Jesus is. Okay. So he's doing this music and different stuff, and it sounds like a lot of, maybe it's a little too highbrow for me. Sounds like a lot of nonsense to me. But apparently a lot of people got up and left. This poor guy.
You said that he has videos online?
Yes, he does. Well, there's one that I watched that was a person that comes out to a lot of those shows that I know, and he's pretty supportive of all the music scenes and posts different stuff, but described it as like a spiritual experience, and it sounded like something that happens like the kind of artist that you would find at like the 4:30 a.m. block at Woodstock.
Ooh, yeah.
That would happen. And for normally it's all ages shows there, but for his set it was adults only. The rest of the bands are good.
I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm going to find these videos of this guy. I'm going to enjoy the show.
Well, he's got music videos, I think, online. So go shout out to Glass Diaper. Go check them out. That's GLASS space DIAPER. That took some brain power to look that up. So that's what I was into the weekend. But enough about what I've been doing. Let's talk about some Fallout 76 news. So today in Fallout 76 news, this week, Pete Hines, Bethesda's senior VP of Marketing and Communications, has clarified access to the beta. And this is a quote from the tweet. if you're in the beta, you're in the beta. If we do things before the beta, you could get randomly selected to help with that too. But nobody gets shortchanged on access to the beta. So essentially what he's saying is that everybody that has access to the beta will be in the beta, that there will be some form, and that possibly the beta will be open up to a select few people as they move forward. You're looking at yourself right now, but it'll be open to a select few people moving forward with that. So a lot of people were concerned that they were going to get access to the beta with some of the wording initially, and so it took some different clarification of who's access to what, what's the access to what beta, and of course, Xbox is the first place that the general public will be able to play the beta, and then it'll be on PS4 and I think PC. I'm not sure. I'm not even really. I don't think that the game is you're able to pre-order the game on Steam yet. So I'm curious as to what they're gonna do with that.
Right. I wonder how much of a gap there will be between Xbox to other consoles.
It's normally a day.
Yeah.
I don't really like the weird third-party exclusivity for anything in particular.
It's a little odd. Yeah,
I understand your first party studios, you contract these people, they're gonna make games for your system, and that's part of your pool. But a lot of these like third party deals, I don't really understand. Of like, the Division had one where it was like you had to play the DLC. You got to play the DLC like a month early on Xbox, and then it came out in PlayStation 4. And there's stuff with vice versa, back and forth.
Very odd. But like you said, I wouldn't think it'd be that much of a gap.
Yeah, I think people are just getting their panties in a knot for no particular reason.
It's all good.
Yeah,
you'll get there eventually. You're gonna get to play the game. Stop freaking out.
So since there's really not a lot of news, I wanted to take some time this week and discuss nuclear weapons within Fallout 76. So the background, and for those of you that don't know, Fallout 76's assumed end game is going to be featuring nuclear weapons. And so these are actual missile silos in the game that people collectively get codes for. So one person will get one piece of the code, another person will get another piece, and then all kind of like puzzle them together, and then they'll go out and to a missile silo, find the controls for the nuclear weapon, and then launch that nuclear weapon on any location in the game. And so the details exactly what happens when it is launched and how it lands and what that means are kind of fuzzy. But we do know that once it lands, it creates this radioactive high-level zone where you're having these high-level enemies that you're able to fight. Essentially, it creates this end game after you've already beaten a good majority of the game. It creates a challenge for you to go out there to get special loot.
Makes it a little more rewarding when you get there than if you hadn't nuked it, I guess. Gives you more of a, like you said, you're going to find higher level stuff, essentially. So that's cool. Maybe people that have leveled up enough that nothing is really challenging for them anymore, that's going to give them more opportunity to delve deeper into the game.
So we saw that actually in the E3 presentation when they were talking about the different things you could do. They had a group of 4 people in the power armor that were going out and finding the codes and then launching the nuclear weapons. And I think they had a lot of the photos of the Charleston Capitol were actually when a nuclear event has set off. So all that stuff that's in like orangish, like kind of clouds and stuff, that's during that nuclear event that they had set.
But the dome is still standing. That's what has blown my mind.
Man, the dome stands forever. What is it, 20 karat gold up there?
Something like that.
Oh, man.
I should know that.
Yeah. It's very easy to tell people and you'd be like, oh, I think I know where Charleston is. Oh, yeah, you passed the gold dome in the interstate.
You passed the big, huge gold dome.
That's it.
I can actually tell you right now what the dome is. It's right here on my phone. But I have Sprint, so it's not right here on my phone. Let's see. So, 23.5 karat gold.
Oh.
Wow.
And
That's
that's pretty big. Big.
bigly.
Yeah, shows what I know about jewelry. I just managed to get my wife's engagement ring, and she was happy with that, and that's
the extent.
That's all
of
I
your
can
knowledge.
muster for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
As far as the actual dome, it's black in between, right? It's black in between a lot of that gold.
So it's kind of like a blue. It's like a bluish.
From far away, it looks
tint.
black.
It kind of. I'm not really sure. What I know is that it's
What kind of filter you got on it?
it's gilded in 23.5 karat gold.
Oh, look
Let's
at you!
see,
That's Mr. Tourism himself over there.
Lead roof and tiny 3 3/8 inch squares.
Oh, wow, that's very nice.
Beautiful.
Well, so as far as in-game content, what do you think about this stuff with the nuclear bombs and nuclear codes? Because there's a lot of people that are with it and understand kind of, oh yeah, it's to make these high-level zones, so there's some different stuff. But then, like, when those nukes get launched, essentially your bases get destroyed within that area. It hasn't necessarily been confirmed, and that's my own speculation.
Yeah.
But that's what it seems to be.
There are gonna be some really salty people that have like just completed like the most meticulous of planning and building with their base, and it's all gonna be just crushed.
Well, apparently nothing actually gets deleted, but it seems like stuff can break, and so that's what happens in settlements in Fallout 4 is that you've got to go back and repair stuff as your turrets and different stuff as it degrades. You've got to go back and repair it, and so I'd imagine that it would still be standing, but I wonder if like they're gonna have like an alert. Like
Pack your stuff up, get out. Like now, I wonder how long from launch to impact. I mean, you're gonna have at that point, you know.
Well, it's like, is it gonna be like? How do the people at the missile silo get to the places they want to go? Like, what is, do they fast travel there? So there's got to be some sort of.
Can you nuke? If you can nuke anywhere on the map, can you nuke yourself? Deep thought.
Deep thought, man.
High thoughts with Austin.
Well, it's like you're underground in this missile silo, so,
I mean, that's. I don't know. I'm wondering, like, how many locations there are going to be that you can nuke. Does it eventually start? Does the radiation start to go down eventually? I mean, like, I
would think it would reset at some point to go back to normal, and I would imagine
you just have a whole map full of craters.
Well, yeah, you're not. It's gonna reset at some point, obviously, because it's gonna eventually get better.
Exactly.
Because you're not gonna like you go to any map on any of the servers, and it's just gonna be this massive thing, and that's not gonna happen. But effectively, one area, if people are playing this in game, is going to have a little bit of that. Now the range and radius of it, I doubt it's going to be like this entire.
Yeah, it couldn't be that much,
right?
I mean, realistically, a nuke drops. I mean, it's going to be pretty substantial, but for the game's sake, I'm sure it's just a minuscule little portion of the map.
So I just kind of wanted to pick your brain and see what you thought about that. We haven't really covered it. Next week, we're going to look at some questions that people have had coming up to Fallout 76 in excitement for the panel that Bethesda is having at QuakeCon, where they're going to answer some of the Fallout 76 questions that we have. So I'm sorry that there's not a lot of news this week, but we do what we can.
Slow news week.
Slow news week. But we've got a pretty interesting topic to cover this week, so why don't we get right into that?
Is it hummus?
It's not hummus.
All right, well, let's go ahead anyways.
All right, so Austin, this week we're going to be covering a topic that hasn't really seen a lot of attention with a lot of the previews. And through watching the No Clip documentary on the making of Fallout 76, I was able to find some of the map images where they scroll. It's literally for the split second before they scroll, I've noticed this town and the ash heap at the very bottom of it that looked very familiar to me. And that town, which I'll post that location. I'll have some information on where that is on Twitter or Instagram or something like that. If you want to fact check me, you can. I'll have a screenshot of it up when this podcast goes live. But this town is called Bramwell. And Bramwell is unique, particularly to us, because that's one of the closest locations that we know that is in the game to where we originally grew up.
And for people listening that are saying it's Bramwell, it's not Bramwell.
It's Bramwell.
If you go to Bramwell and say Bramwell, you're going to get looked at funny by everyone that lives there. It's Bramwell. Basically, take the W out, and that's that's how you pronounce it.
If there's one thing I want to communicate with this project of a podcast is that everyone in West Virginia pronounces their towns very differently.
Yes.
So wherever you go, you will be prepared to be local as you will be saying the correct name of their town.
Oh, that town. Oh, yeah, Hurricane. No, Hurricane.
And if you really don't want to stand out like a sore thumb, you will never say Appalachia. You'll always say Appalachia.
That is my biggest. I think that has to be one of my biggest pet peeves, especially like the Weather Channel. If you're watching something like that, they always say the Appalachian Mountains. I just I want to find out where that person lives.
Where's the why?
And just lecture them. Like, I just want to go and have like a sit down talk and just like tell them how wrong they are. But.
So, Austin, I've got a little bit of history on Bramwell that I'm going to get people up to speed with, and then I kind of want to just talk about our experiences with the town and what our outlooks on it are. All right. So, Bramwell is a small town in the micropolitan area of Bluefield, West Virginia. And if you didn't know, micropolitan is a term that came out in the 1990s to describe developed areas outside of the connecting metropolitan areas that large cities have. Essentially, it was created as a subclass for metropolitan. So, like, it wouldn't be considered a part of like the DC metropolitan area of New York because it's often its own little thing over there.
Yeah.
So the town was founded by J.H. Bramwell in 1880, who was a wealthy coal entrepreneur and a real estate developer. He spent some time as Bramwell's postmaster, but eventually made enough money off of real estate sales and moved to Switzerland, where he died in 1890. So that's what happens when you move away from West Virginia to Switzerland. You goner.
You die.
Bramwell was one of the first mining towns, which began mining in 1873 and was the epicenter of commerce for the Pocahontas coal fields that employed around 100,000 miners. So the Pocahontas coal fields were like the southern West Virginia coal seam that everybody went to.
People forget that West Virginia is big for mining. People forget.
People forget. So the Bank of
One more time.
The Bank of Bramwell, founded in 1896 by James Mann and his cousin I.T. Mann, was thought to be the wealthiest bank per capita in America until the financial collapse of the Great Depression in 1929. And I do like the fact that it is I.T. Mann, and in my head I think Ip Man. There was a confirmed total of 13 millionaires living in Bramwell in the 20th century, but some say that the number was actually 17. $1 million in 1883 is equivalent to $23 million in 2018. The town met major economic distress from the Great Depression, as well as several fires that destroyed town property. Today, the town houses around 364 residents. A large amount of the historic homes that have survived the early fires have been preserved by their tenants. With the construction of the Hatfield and McCoy ATV trails, the town has even seen an increase in tourism in recent years.
Bramwell.
Definitely
one of the, I guess, cooler places in West Virginia. I mean, I'm a little biased, but I think in terms of just a history and what you can see there still, it's a very, don't get me wrong, it's a very, very small town. But when you go there, you genuinely, I think, feel like you step back in time. Because you come down the hill, and it's kind of like on a peninsula almost, like of the Bluestone River. The Bluestone just kind of wraps around it there, and it's it almost seems like I'm honestly very surprised that it hasn't been like a film location for like a movie set.
Well, it's perfect for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the brick streets. You've got the little river that winds around it. You've got the little corner shop. It would be like the perfect like fall small town kind of like, maybe not a horror movie, but kind of like something like a Stranger Things type feel. Like you're like in this little like
they could shoot the TV series Riverdale there if they wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, like it genuinely, like you feel like you're not. One, I don't think that you really feel like you're in modern day West Virginia.
No, you don't.
There.
You feel like you've gone way back. In time.
And then two, like you get like this very authentic vintage feel when you go there.
Yeah, that's probably the best word to describe it is vintage.
I mean, whenever I go home, especially in the fall, because it really is, I think, one of the more, and this is like basic white girl of me to say, but it's just like the fall vibes you get. Like
hashtag fall vibes.
Yeah, it's like the leaves are falling and you got like a crisp air.
Yeah.
You can like a crisp like 55 degrees. You wear like a hoodie and some shorts. Go down there, corner shop, get you some coffee or something. And you can just walk around these brick streets and there's all these houses from the 1800s that have been maintained or restored. And it's just like, it genuinely just kind of takes you back in time as you walk down the street. And like you said, $1 million at the time, I mean, they were very wealthy. They were not hurting.
Yeah, the people that lived there that originally had these homes were extremely wealthy and were essentially they were the capital of West Virginia as far as commerce and economy during that time, because that's where the main offices for the coal companies were. So that's where the coal barons lived. They lived in these gigantic houses. I know that there's houses in there that have ballrooms attached to them, that have their own libraries inside, and they're all in these like, some of them are like Victorian style. It's like a keeping up with the Joneses feel of when they built these houses of the kind of architecture that they wanted to use with each one. And so each one has a particular identity attached to it.
I think they all have names now too. Like I know that they do like the fall, they call it a ghost tour, but it's more so like a historical tour.
They have the ghost tour. They have a garden tour.
Yeah, the winter, like the Christmas lights tour. And I think that on the map, like each house has its own name, I guess based off of either who owned it at one point or who is most famously known to live there. But it's like you said, I think that's a good way to put it. Every one of them has its own identity, including like the bank, because I know they turned the bank into a residence for a while, and then I think now it's being operated again. I don't know. I think
the bank. I don't think the bank is used, and I don't think the bank is used in operation as a bank, but I think it's used in operation as a business or community center.
Yeah, maybe something for the town, but with like the government, but you know what I mean.
A lot of government agents, you know.
Oh yeah. Speaking of government of or representatives of Bramwell, the mayor is probably the coolest mayor I've ever met, Louise Stoker. I don't know if you ever met her.
No,
I don't know if you've spoken with her.
I have not met her. If I talk to my mother right now, I have met her, and I know all of her family. But
so she's been the mayor there for a while. I mean, I guess she grew up in Bramwell, and I was taking pictures there. I think I've told you this once before. I was taking pictures in Bramwell a few years ago, and it was around the time the sun was starting to set, and I was right there on the main strip, and this car just stops in the middle of the road, and I kind of looked, and I was like, what is this? They were just staring at me, and I was like, what is this person doing? Their windows were tinted. I couldn't tell who it was. And then I hear the door open, and I'm like, am I not supposed to be here? Like, what's going on? And then this little old woman just comes out running to me, and she was like, are you getting any good pictures? And we stood there and talked for 10 minutes, and she turned out that she knew my dad, and she was like, I'll be right back. She gets in her car and just takes off driving up the hill. She comes back with like a brochure that my dad had photographed these houses back in, I guess, the 90s for like a Christmas tour. And she was like, here, I want you to have this. Like just randomly knew exactly where that was. But it was just like, she talked to me like she had known me for 20 years, you know, like, and a lot of the people in Bramwell do, I think, like you meet them and they all know each other. They'll all welcome you in. regardless of where you're from, and they'll kind of immerse you in the history of Bramwell.
Bramwell is more of it's a town, but it's also a project that everyone who lives there is kind of involved with as a community event.
Yeah, they are fully aware. Everyone that lives there is fully aware of basically all of the history of the town. Mm-hmm. I think that's like a prerequisite to live there. You have to know what you're moving into.
Right.
And I think that they all kind of, like you said, they band together, I think, to kind of like uphold that history, and that they all kind of want to keep that alive. Mm. And they definitely let everyone else know about it. I mean, they're definitely very proud of it, like I said. So I think it's one of those things that, like, you can go and spend a day there, and you definitely understand better once you get there than if you just read it online, because you're gonna get the full detailed story from them. Mm. So,
well, with living as close as we did, and I would spend a good amount of time there. We're both originally from Bluefield, different sides of the track, but Bluefield all the same. But we would often go there to different little events, community stuff. And so the two experiences that I had was they used to have, originally it was a high school called the Bramwell Millionaires. What pretty on the nose name. And so
fitting.
With the high schools kind of condensing and moving out to Bluefield and Princeton, I think Bramwell's mostly Bluefield.
There were a lot of kids I went to high school with that they were from Bramwell.
Right. So it condensed and it became an elementary school. And so I ended up, my dad worked for a school system, and I ended up having the opportunity just on a school day. I got called in the office, and my dad was like, "Hey, do you want to go meet Alexa Vega?"
Gosh.
Which Alexa Vega was the older sister, and if not star, not Antonio Banderas, of the Spy Kids films.
The love of my life at the time.
Right. And man. Spy Kids 2 was like the big thing. It was like, as a kid, seminal event next to Spy Kids 3D, which all the same wasn't as good, but that preview where the kid was like reaching out with his arm into the movie theater
changed my life.
Very exciting. So I said, yeah, I want to go meet Alexa Vega, and so they had done some sort of fundraising for a charity that she was attached to, and they had won this competition, and so she was coming to speak. And so I went with my dad. I was like, I'll get to see her. And then my dad was meeting with some of the teachers. He was like, yeah, come on in here. And she was in the room. And so I got to shake Alexa Vega's hand and got my picture taken with her. And I found this the other day looking for this. And I sent you a picture of it. A signed copy of Spy Kids 2 with Alexa Vega's signature on it.
I would cherish that forever. I'm just going to figure out her agent's address and mail my copy of Spy Kids 3D. I'm sure I have it somewhere.
Right.
It's like, can you please get her to sign this? I'm sure she's not hounded for it anymore. I just want it.
So
I just want it.
So that was my first real memory of Bramwell, which is
that's a good way to be introduced to it.
A total left field. But when I went back, it was for different community events and touring the different houses, going in the church down there. I think that's an Episcopal or Presbyterian church that they have down there.
I want to say Presbyterian.
I want to say so, yeah. It was a really nice church, really nice homes. I went and got to tour a home while I was down there, and it was a guy named Harold lived in this home, and he had all this different stuff, beautiful home with very, very vintage fixtures and bookcases. And walking in there, it felt like you really stepped back in time, and there was so much culture and history within the walls of the house. But the most interesting thing was that in his yard, he had two pets, and these pets were geese. And they were very tall geese. They were probably just a little bit shorter than me, and they were mean, because geese are mean. Yeah. And they would chase you. And so it was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then later on, I was talking with somebody, and they were telling me that apparently one time the geese had gotten out.
As they do.
And so he was like in fishing waders going down the Bluestone River, yelling for his geese, being like, come back. I did not mean to let you out.
I did not mean to let my geese out. And you're speaking of Harold?
Speaking of Harold, yeah.
It's hilarious to me that we've both had interactions with Harold and Bramwell.
I mean, it's like it's 24 people probably that are like the cornerstone of that town. I mean, it's like I mean, it's essentially Twin Peaks. Like it's this like less drama, but the same people doing the same stuff.
Pretty much, and it's. Like with Harold, it was actually that same night that I met Louise Stoker. And I was walking around because he's kind of right around that curve, kind of curves around the river, and then you can get back on the main strip. And I was just taking pictures, and they had just completed a new bridge to the other side there to other houses, but you couldn't drive on it. And he came out, and I was kind of like looking at it. I was like, I might walk across. Like, what's it going to hurt? And he came out with his wife and introduced himself. And he was like, hey, the people right up there up at the top of the hill, they're actually gone right now. So if you want to, in their front yard, there's like a great view of the whole town. If you want to walk up there, it's totally cool. We'll make sure nobody gives you any trouble. Because he was like, a lot of people, we don't want them to think that you're, trespassing.
Called Bramwell Police Department.
They were like, we don't want you to get in trouble. So after I'd introduced myself and talked to them for a few minutes, we established that he knew my grandmother, which seems like everybody does. So
your grandmother is the star of the town as well.
Exactly.
Star of the area, really.
She's a hoot. So I walked up and got some pictures and came back down, and they talked to me again. It was so welcoming, and I guess I found out he's traveled the world with music and everything that he does. So that kind of goes back to the whole Bramwell residents being proud, because I mean, if you've traveled the world, he's been to so many countries and big cities and seen so many great things, and then he decided he wanted to settle in Bramwell, West Virginia. So that tells you something about how welcoming and how just overall how good that place must be to live.
There's a lot of people that are from out of town that aren't native to that Bluefield area, that have moved to Bramwell because, first of all, for the size and style of the home that you're getting, it is very cheap in comparison. West Virginia in general is very cheap when it comes to real estate.
Those houses in a big city,
oh gosh,
I mean, you're looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like most of them probably over $1 million.
I mean, honestly, you're talking $2 or $3 million.
Yeah, the ones that are like very well restored. Right. God, I don't even want to think about it. But they're, a lot of people our age probably, if you have a decent job, you could afford it and live in a huge, authentic 1800s mansion.
And then it becomes a project in itself because let's say you are retired and you want to move somewhere where you have something to do, then that becomes your project that you do. And you're a part of this. You're working on your home, but you're also a part of this community where everybody's working on their homes. And everybody's trying to have this level of historic value and authenticness.
They know people are going to want to tour them too. So they want to show off what the house has been, what the house can be, what they can do with it. So that's definitely just the millionaire culture that they want to maintain.
It really is, and it's so interesting to see the town. Well, just to know that the town moved from this area of this like massive commerce, this massive business of coal mining, and then move into more of this like tourist destination,
like a nostalgia kind of feel.
And then with the addition of the Hatfield and McCoy ATV trails that run through
it's
there,
a hub now. I mean, it's becoming
a little bit of a hub.
And every time I go there now, you see several ATVs side by side. I mean, they roll through regularly, so it's definitely keeping that area even more relevant. I mean, before the trails, I mean, it was still a cool place to be, but I think that that's helping business, especially with the Corner Shop Diner, because It's a fantastic place to eat, and I think that a lot of the trail riders like going in there because it's a little better than a cooler packed lunch. So
the corner shop diner, if I'm correct, is like that's where they have the buffet style dining where they cook different stuff every day, or is that a different restaurant?
It's the last time I was there. I mean, you could get authentic burgers and hot dogs and different types of food like that. You can get homemade ice cream.
I must be thinking of something different.
Yeah, you can get homemade ice cream, milkshakes. I mean, it's a really it's like a soda fountain basically. You can get
Right, it's like
a
chocolate shop,
and it's definitely doing well. I think a lot of the locals love that place, but it's so weird to me when you go to Bramwell because you're kind of in the middle of nowhere. I feel like.
I mean, you really are. It's
like you're driving down 52. There's Pinnacle Rock. You feel like, whoa, I'm out in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
It's like the perfect town for a murder to happen in.
Yeah.
Just for the mystery elements of the different characters from the town.
Yeah.
So it's like you could make a whole board game out of it.
Exactly. I mean, because everyone knows I unless they just moved there like a week ago, I can't imagine at least 96 to 97% of the town not knowing each other. Because they're too well, everyone's so connected there. And it's just cool because you're in the middle of nowhere and then you just kind of come down the hill and you're in this little town.
So in Fallout 76, I managed to find the location of this town based on this documentary that they had. And I've got a screen grab of that, and I'm lining it up with the map, or at least images of the map. And it seems like that there is a larger settlement or a city-esque thing that's in the bottom of the ash heap region. And so I'm curious as to, in the game, what their take on Bramwell is.
I would have to imagine that it's going to be formerly basically a metropolis, like an Appalachian metropolis. Like
since
it's going to have a lot of money.
History essentially diverts from ours around 1950.
Yeah.
Everything is very different, and so it seems like that the wealth has continued through that community and has branched out to create this 1950s paradise.
Yeah.
Which, in a way, Bramwell kind of is, just on a smaller...
If you go there, that's what... I mean, genuinely, I think that's what a lot of people probably imagine this place was. It's... it's like straight out of a 1950s television series, rolling down the street in an old convertible, Main Street lined with people on a Friday night, just everybody, you know what I mean? It's just ideal picture perfect image of just that whole 1950s, 1960s era. So they, like we've said before, they definitely do their research.
They do the research, and if they have Bramwell, I said that wrong. If they have, shame on me. I will. That's strike one on me. If they have Bramwell,
yes,
in the game, they probably went there. Because
which
you wouldn't be able to...
Which is a beautiful thought to me.
Which is crazy to us. But just from reading about it, I don't think it conveys that particular setting or dialogue. But going there, you're like, wait a second, this place is kind of...
Yeah.
It's kind of special.
I've never met someone that's been there and hasn't enjoyed it. Or hasn't been like, wow, this is actually really... didn't expect it. Didn't expect to
it's like a hidden gem.
Way. Yeah, and that's actually on our website, on West Virginia Tourism's website. That is what category Bramwell's under. Hidden gem.
Hidden gem.
Hidden gem, yeah.
There you go.
So, and there's a few of my coworkers that haven't been there yet, and they are all pumped to get down there. They've all, it's a place that I think in recent years, I really think it's gained more of a reputation for being a hidden gem. I think before... It was, it's a washed up town. It's a ghost town. No one's there anymore. And now that is kind of carrying it into, wow, we need to go check this place out. This sounds, because it's so out of the ordinary now for the state. Because
if you go down there and you're a tourist and you walk in any of the shops, people will ask you for your life story, and they will give you their life story. So I'd imagine
100%.
that if any of that initial design team went down there,
They got the full thing.
they know about probably 20 people in that town. Know their brothers and sons.
They probably met Louise Stoker. Louise probably called up another resident like Harold and was like, "Hey, we've got these guys down here doing this. Let's give them a story." And it's funny, but it's honestly probably true. They more than likely have. If they went there, they definitely were probably there for several hours. Just
and that
listening.
goes for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, even me being from Bluefield, sometimes when I would go there, they would still, well, did you know this? And did you know this? And these people from Bluefield, like they'll bring in, I mean, they seem to know just about everything about that town. Like I said, I swear it's a prerequisite. You have to pass a test about the town before you can live there.
So it's interesting to have the background that we do, and then essentially come to find it portrayed in a video game. It'll be interesting because I'm not quite sure as far as if there's been any screenshots of the particular location. But as far as on the map, we know it's there.
We know it's there.
So I'm interested to go down that way, and I'm sure that's the first place that we're going. We're going to be like, oh, we need to go set them up. We got to go see what we got down there.
Here's the thing that makes me kind of even more excited. So Bethesda has been very, very successful, I think, in the past of pretty accurate representations of bigger cities. I'm kind of excited to see. I mean, there's not a ton to Bramwell. I want to see how it would be so cool if it was, pretty accurate as to what is there. They're going to change a little bit, I'm sure.
And so their idea of like that 50s nostalgia is a little bit more sci-fi, a lot like Tomorrowland at Disney World.
Yeah.
The city of the future. And so I'd imagine that it would be of a similar style, but through that Fallout lens.
Yeah. As long as they've got the corner shop diner, I'm a happy man.
That's all you need.
That's all you need.
Go down there.
A homemade milkshake.
Get a ghoul named Louise Stoker. She's still down there.
See, that would be... I would love it if they did something like that. That would be so cool.
Turn these... I want the Jesco White ghoul, please. Give me that. Please, I'll go down and
inject it in my veins. Like, just give me Jesco White.
All right, so to kind of transition us over here into our final segment. Well, not really our final segment. We got another segment after this, but we're going to talk about the musician of the week. And as you know, Bramwell, West Virginia is near Bluefield, and that is in Mercer County. And this week we're going to be talking about a musician from Mercer County. So Hazel Dickens.
Hazel Dickens
was a native Mercer County lady, which is the home to large communities like Princeton and Bluefield and smaller ones like Montcalm and, of course, Bramwell. And she's the... I need to redo all this bullshit. I wrote this and then I didn't check it. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. All right. I'm not even going to pick it up there. Okay. So, Austin, I'm going to move into our next segment for this week, which is a segment called Musician of the Week. And so we're going to be talking this week about a Mercer County native called Hazel Dickens. So Hazel Dickens was the member of a mining family, and she was, I think, 8 of 11 children to this particular family, and they all played music, and she ended up moving to Baltimore to become this very famous bluegrass player during the 50s, 60s, 70s, I think during the 60s and 70s, for the Baltimore, D.C. area, which was where a lot of bluegrass music was taking place. And she was essentially the mother of bluegrass. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily say that there's a mother of bluegrass. Right. People joke and be like, well, the mother and the father of bluegrass is, the guy who plays the mandolin player. Go look up famous mandolin player. It'll be your number one search on Google, and that's who it is. And I cannot. Bill Williams. Hazel Williams. Nope, that's a different one. So go look him up. But her music was characterized not only by her high, lonesome singing style, but also her provocative pro-union and feminist songs. She recorded albums like Who's That Knocking, which is considered one of the earliest bluegrass records to be made entirely by women. In her later years, she still performed and was even in feature films such as Harlan County, USA, and, as we discussed last week, Matewan. And in 2011, she passed at the age of 85. So Hazel was this really progressive bluegrass player, which a lot of people, when they think of bluegrass, they don't immediately think of these progressive political people, but there's a lot of that in bluegrass music, and it's a foundation of it, I would say.
I never really thought of bluegrass that way either, but yeah, it seems like there's a lot of progressive thinkers in the bluegrass scene.
Well, I mean, even, and it's like you have to have this. A lot of people that play it professionally have this like super high intelligence, and so like Abigail Washburn is one of those people. She's a currently very famous bluegrass musician, and I think she plays particularly newgrass. And she's married to another famous bluegrass musician named Bela Fleck. But I know that Abigail was essentially training to be this diplomat in China, and so knows Mandarin and can sing in Chinese and does all of this stuff and utilizes that in some of her music. But it's like these people that play bluegrass, I mean, the amount that you have to know, like from the get-go, when you're going to play bluegrass music, you're not saying, okay, we're going to play the song. You're jamming off of something. Like, you know what key you're in. You're playing with that. You're all messing around. It's more like New Orleans jazz than anything else, really, because you're ragging off people. You're riffing off this. You're just jamming this. Right, you're just jamming out. And you set up your portion. That's part of it. You play it your whole life, and so you can just play with any group. It's something as a musician that's like completely fascinating to me. So it's like I have a good ear, but
they can just play off of whatever.
Right, they can just go.
Like the improv level is like on a million at that point. I feel like.
So I just kind of wanted to mention her as
shout out to Mercer County, a
Mercer County musician that's fairly famous in the community. Delightful lady. I would recommend you giving her songs a listen when you have the chance. So I'm going to move us into our next section, which is just a catch up and a community section. So with the announcements this week, some very official announcements is that the new logo that we have is still updating on some of the services. So eventually it will be available on all services. I'm having a little bit of trouble of getting it on some of the third-party podcasting applications, of getting that out there as the actual artwork, but it's changing everything else. Hopefully when this episode goes live, it'll be fixed and it'll be easy. Next week, we are breaking into one of the main topics, I would call, that we've been wanting to cover. Really big three, as I'll call them, which is Charleston, where we are right now, Mothman, and Greenbrier. And so we are starting it off, and we're talking about the Greenbrier next week. So it's going to be a very exciting episode. I've got a lot of information as I was just there. And just had a tour just a few weeks ago.
I'll be passing through there on Friday.
There we go. So we'll be pretty up to date with what we got here. So with social media, I've kind of been figuring out social media. And so now Twitter and Instagram are very different. So Instagram, I was back and forth of what kind of content would be on there. So now I've got it settled on Instagram is going to be more of stories and pictures that me and Austin want to tell. And it's going to be more about West Virginia as a whole rather than the weekly episodes. Twitter is going to be more about fun facts and different little blurbs about the episodes after we do them, just to kind of fill you in. We are also on YouTube. I'm still learning how to do clip art, or not clip art. That's what you have in word processors. What is that? Tab art?
Paint.
Thumbnail art. Thumbnail art. That's what you call it. And that's like an art form in itself. And so I'm, trying to learn all that. So with the community this week, guess what? We have our first email. So you can always email us your questions, comments, concerns at vaultboyswv@gmail.com. That's vaultboyswv@gmail.com. And this one is from listener and friend of the show, Britt Arcadipane. He sent me an email, and I've kind of summarized it a little bit, letting me know to check into these two different things. Mm-hmm. So the first one is Mark Harshman. So Mark Harshman is the poet laureate for West Virginia. So if you don't know what a poet laureate is, and I may be butchering the word laureate, I'm not sure, but it's a poet that's appointed to or regarded unofficially as holding an honorary representative position in a particular country, region, or group. So essentially, it is the equivalence of literary knighthood in West Virginia. And so this guy has written a ton of children's books and written a bunch of poems. And most recently, his publications were Believe What You Can, which are poems about the difficulty of living with an awareness of the eventual death of all living things. And if that is a little too sad for you, in 2017, he co-wrote Falling Water, which is a children's book on Frank Lloyd Wright's masterpiece Home. It was interesting learning about that. I'm going to do a little bit more looking at him and see what he's got and what kind of stuff he has.
I would also, just going off of that, my family is very close with a former poet laureate of West Virginia. Jean Batlow. I've got her Wikipedia page pulled up here just because I couldn't remember some of her works, but a lot of cool. She was did a lot of playwright stuff. She's actually based out of McDowell County, not far from Bramwell. McDowell. She was probably about a half an hour from Bramwell, so she grew up near there in the coal fields. But yeah, she did a lot of stuff. What was it called? The Terror of the Tug is a big play that she did. Tug River runs through McDowell County. Yeah. I think it's actually been adapted for several larger productions that they've done that. She established several things in McDowell County for different plays to go on, amphitheaters, did a lot of Shakespeare. So she is another person, Jean Batlow. I would check out some of her work as well, going off of that.
So I was reading up about the poet laureate, and I've decided that West Virginia needs a pod laureate. Ooh. And of these, the knighthood of West Virginia-based podcasts. And so I'm willing to nominate myself as well as you. But we can also include those fine folks at NPR, doing God's work up there. Trying to get some West Virginia stuff. Yeah. Like probably you want to include Mountain Stage, maybe a little bit,
maybe possibly. I think
maybe inside Appalachia. We'll see, but that's the campaign I'm running. That's my sloth is officially over, and now we are trying to become the pod laureates of
the sloth
West Virginia.
Here? Is it home?
You have connections with the governor, so I expect this done pretty fast. In fact, this campaign is really centered around you and your ability to motivate the government.
I met with Jim. Like I was literally 3 feet from Jim Justice last week. I should have told him, Jim,
be like,
that's my sloth.
That's my sloth.
Jim, you hashtag
need
that's
to
my sloth.
Pull some strings and get this fossil back to West Virginia. So the other thing in the email is he wanted me to do a little research on Patrick Rothfuss, who is a very famous author. He's like George R.R. Martin in a sense of having one of these very seminal modern fantasy novels. It's called the Kingkiller Chronicles. I've actually am halfway through the first one, which is The Name of the Wind. But Patrick Rothfuss is a big Fallout fan. And so he was streaming, I believe, Fallout 4 on Twitch while he was trying to write a sequel. And he was all like, this may take off some time of me finishing this book. So he's a big Fallout fan, but also did an episode, starred and helped write and produce an episode of Myths and Monsters for the Travel Channel about Mothman in Point Pleasant. And so he went to Point Pleasant and did the interviews with these different people. So that's something to check out from a Fallout fan that also has done some research on West Virginia. It's worth checking out. I'm not sure how you can go back and look at some of those episodes, But it'd be
They're
worth
online somewhere.
Yeah, they're online somewhere. It'd be worth looking up. But we thank you, Britt, for emailing us in, giving us some tips and stuff. We're happy to mention that and bring it up in later shows. If you have any, as a listener, comments or questions that you want to email in, just say hey. Feel free. It's always open. But as far as stuff for today, that's it. Don't forget to email us your questions at vaultboyswv@gmail.com. I'll spell it again, vaultboyswv@gmail.com. Check us out on social media at vaultboyswv. I won't spell it that time. We are on Google, iTunes, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud, but not Spotify, because Spotify is dumb with how they work podcasts.
Come on, Spotify.
If there is a service, though, that I wish this podcast could be on, it would be as an occasional replacement for NPR's classical music segments. But dwellers, for now, the vault door is closing. See you next week. Stay safe.